First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, great dialogue coming our way. Preparing yourself to go back to work after you have been assaulted. Obviously, there are people in this profession that have been assaulted and they could be anxious about going back to work. And I think this is going to be a great dialogue because it doesn't just involve the individual going back to work, but also their family, their loved ones. It's going to be a great topic. Russ, we got Russ, founders of Keepers of Chaos on Facebook. Russ, what's going on? Any updates for Keepers?
Yeah, Anthony, got a lot going on with Keepers, as always. We're up over 4,500 members now. So, we're looking always to try and add to our numbers. Any correctional professional can join. Also, we're going to be doing an event down in Tejon Ranch, California, which is down there by LA. We're going to be doing a Tough Mudder event, and we're going to be doing it as a team. Hopefully, I got one person signed up so far, so I'm hoping that we're going to get more. I'd like to see some guys from the East Coast come, if possible, and it would just be a great time. It's 10 miles, it's 20 obstacles. You can do the shorter version. You can also be a spectator if you want and come and carry my water.
That makes me laugh. Guys, if you're interested, Russ could give you his email and you can email him directly. Russ, what's your email again?
My email is sierra.sargent@gmail.com, and that's SIERRA.sargent. Sargent is the common spelling, which is SERGEANT@gmail.com.
All right, guys. So we're going to go to our sponsor, and when we come back, we're going to be discussing going back to work after you've been assaulted. Now, guys, if you have the show Tear Talks for you, brave men and women at work in correction. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. Again, when we come back from our sponsors, we're going to be talking about going back to work after you've been assaulted. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, and we are back. So Russ, in my opinion, and again, I've never been assaulted, guys, so bear with me. We're just going to kind of discuss it out, and hopefully we hit some points along the way that are relevant. But the key here is this. If I've been assaulted and I'm getting ready to go back, I'm assuming that my confidence has could have probably lessened, and my my ability to be effective at the job, obviously related to the confidence, but also I need that courage to go back in. I mean, that's the key. Now, guys, there have been people that I'm sure that get assaulted and they can go right back into it. And I get that maybe their life experiences are different. Maybe they've been in fights before, but maybe there's some that this could be the first time they've ever been assaulted or attacked. And now they have to kind of get right back on that bike and continue pedaling. And guys, the option sometimes is they have to go back to work. I know a lot of people are like, well, why go back to work? Sometimes that's not an option. Sometimes they need that money because they have a family to support. So Russ, courage to go back to work, the confidence to be effective. Do you think those are two main areas of concern?
Well, yeah, those are going to be areas of concern because of the way that assaults tend to go. Now, not all of them are the same, of course, but when you get assaulted, you're in there, and sometimes that assault is going to happen in front of 50, 100, maybe 1,000 inmates. And so, you spend a little bit of time out, and those inmates are probably going to try and use that, just to get in your mental mindset. So there's the potential for it to affect you in that way. There's also the potential, for you to come back and for you to start thinking about that assault. There's the potential for you to have a little bit of, post-trauma, affect. Maybe not, actual, PTSD, but some, affect of it. And so it's going to impinge, perhaps, on that confidence, and it's going to maybe make you a little bit hesitant My way of always dealing with it, coming back, after having spent time out, was always just to figure out, you know what, I gotta get out there. I gotta get back up on that horse. I gotta get going again. I have to get acting in the capacity of an officer, and just, to hell with whatever an inmate says to me or tries to do. And I'm just going to go forward and start functioning. Now, I realize not everybody does that. Maybe depending on the severity of the trauma and everything, maybe that's not possible. But we want to be there to, help our fellow people when they come back from that, and to be able to help them get back up on that horse, to be able to function. And, maybe that's not possible. Maybe what they really need is, to receive some therapy, to get some, extra help outside of, what we can do. I think it's important as a family that we help them in that function, but sometimes only a professional that knows what they're doing can really intercede in a manner that allows them to go back to work.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, Russ, because most people physically, when they get better, they're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Yeah, physically, maybe, but mentally, are you? When you get assaulted, guys, I know that what's going to play out in your head for a while as you process what's happening. And by the way, you have to allow yourself to process what's happening. Don't run away from it. Whatever you're feeling, you have to let it come out. But you're going to kind of wonder, how could this have happened? Like, did I drop my guard? Was I, for some reason, less effective? You're going to have to find reasons so you don't generalize it out, which means that you're going to have to know, okay, what could I have done better? Is there something I could have done better? The last thing you want is to not understand what went wrong and then not be able to pinpoint that specific concern when you do go back to work. You know what I mean? So, like, if I'm not able to determine what went wrong and how I got assaulted, and find a way to justify what happened in regards to maybe, I slipped up, I could have done this a little better, or whatever it is, you wind up generalizing fear because you don't know where to pinpoint what went wrong. So now, even though when you're at home and you may feel mentally you're good to go back to work, when you go back to work, you're faced with a lot of unknowns. Because again, you don't know what specifically went wrong. So part of the process is understanding, what I could have done better if there is a way to justify that. Now, sometimes, like Russ said, there are certain incidences where it just is what it is. It's the inherent risk of the job. You've done nothing wrong. It just happened to be that you happen to get victimized or assaulted because maybe something that's spontaneous happened. But again, it could be just a rare incident. You want to do what you can to make sure that you understand that this is not something that may happen every day. It could happen, but what have we learned so it doesn't happen again? But the greatest concern here, guys, is how you justify what happened. If you want to gain that confidence to go back into work, you're going to have to be able to specify, and guys, this is true, how this happened. Because if you don't have a way to pinpoint that, then when you go back to work, you're going to have generalized fear because everything at that point is unknown. If I don't know how this could have happened to me, then I don't think that I'm going to be ready to go back to work until I'm able to figure that out. And I think what Russ says, therapy. And one last thing before, because I definitely got to get Russ's thoughts on this. The reason why I think the therapy can help is because in order for us to understand how this can happen, it may require us to admit a level of vulnerability about ourselves, which means that, guess what, guys? We could be hypervigilant and still something can happen. But Russ, what's your thoughts on just kind of trying to understand how it could have happened?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go from the more general to the very specific here. I'm gonna actually take a moment and share one of my experiences here. The thing about preparing to come back is, at least in my experience, is that the mental aspect of it, you put a lot more on it than is actually there, but it still can impede you at the beginning from it. And I'll never forget, it was an assault that just kind of, took me off of the yard for about 2 or 3 days. So it wasn't all that serious, but at the same time, I did get hurt. And just to give you an idea, this particular yard has like a little dog leg. It's about the size of maybe like 3 or 4 basketball courts. So it's not very big, but yet we would have anywhere from about 200 to 400 inmates on it. And, I was always good about, maintaining my situational awareness and stuff. And so this one day, I thought that, I had my situational awareness about me, and an inmate approached me, and I'd always keep them, back a few feet. And he started to talk to me, and a guy stepped up from my left and struck me with a sucker punch, straight to my face. So there was nothing beforehand to warn me about this. Well, I kind of got a little bit lucky and a little bit of maybe skilled at the same time, and that I turned away from the punch as fast as I could, and I re-grabbed his arm, and I managed to come back and clothesline him and go to the ground with him. I looked up, I realized that I had been left all alone. My gunner was gone. And so I reached around this guy's neck, and I'm not putting pressure on anything. I know I did not do a chokehold, but I put pressure on it until I could bring my whistle up and blew that and got some help out there. And the upshot of it was, though, just to make it shorter, is that he had scratched the cornea of my eye. And so I didn't feel that hurt, but I definitely couldn't see. And so I ended up with, a couple days off, which, was actually really irritating to me. But I had literally hundreds of inmates out there saw this assault. And so thinking about, coming back and getting back into it, knowing I was going to have to go right back out on that very yard, and that I was going to get questions about it. I was going to get comments. I knew that, that inmates were probably going to, make some kind of, veiled threats. And you know what? All of those things actually did happen. But you know what? I decided, I'm just going back out there. I'm getting back up on that horse. And I prepared myself mentally. And you know what? All my officer friends and stuff, they came back out there. They made sure that they were checking on me. They made sure the guy that left me in the lurch got what he had coming to him. And you pick up and you move on from there. And so these serious things do happen. It's a part of the cost of doing business. I went into my own head and I said, well, what could I have done different? I came to the final conclusion that in this particular instance, there wasn't very much that I could have done, because the assault was so fast, caught me so off guard. I was in a good position though. And I never had my back to the inmates. They were all in a position in front of me. I kept my wits about me. No other inmates got involved. I would have had to change tactics in midstream if that had happened, and it could have gone really wrong because of my gunner leaving. But other than that, all I can say is that, do all of those things, prepare before, prepare when you're coming back after. And then the main thing is lean on us. A lot of us have been there, man. Call me up. I'll give you my phone number anytime. We'll talk. And it can be completely confidential, or we'll text or whatever. So, and that's one instance. I have 3 different times where I had some time off after an assault. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents worth. I'm a big believer in getting back up on that horse though. 3 or 4 days, I got rid of the eye patch and I went right back out there. And, I'm just looking at all the inmates, and they knew after that, hey, he probably could have taken more time off than I probably could have. But I think that, you get to a point where you just want to get back to the functioning. You go out there because you're a correctional officer and you want to function as a correctional officer.
Yeah, I think as you reevaluate, obviously you're doing it to get a healthy mindset. You're not doing it to kind of ruminate on the negative and to stop you from going in. You're trying to reevaluate it so you can motivate yourself to go in. And again, that takes time, because now it's real. We all know that there's an inherent risk, right? But then eventually it becomes real. Now eventually it's a wake-up call that, hey, we're in a very dangerous world. Sure, we heard about it, and sure we keep ourselves mentally prepared. But again, once it finally hits you, when it really happens, it is different. It is different going to work knowing that at one point I was vulnerable, and at one point someone was able to get the best of me. And on the other side of it all too, it becomes real for your family, because your family knows that you're going into a line of work that's dangerous. But sometimes your family's invested in you, knowing, well, you know what? I know Russ, or I know my husband, Anthony or Tony. I know that if anything happens, they can handle it, or, they have this confidence in you. But I get it. It's a confidence that helps them deal with what they have to deal with, allowing you to go in with that risk, But then what happens here is if you do get assaulted, now that confidence that they may have have in you to be safe at work, that also shakes their foundation a little bit, because now again that belief that they had in Russ, or that belief that they had in their husband Tony, it's been shifted a little bit. So you also have to remind your family, when you're good and your mental mindset's correct, you got to have that discussion with them and say, hey, you know what? I know I've been assaulted. Let me tell you specifically what the incident was and how I'm going to address it. Because again, once you find out exactly, if there was a concern that could be addressed, maybe there was a moment where you were slipping or whatever it is, what you can do better next time, that moment to improve. But the concern is that when you're not able to identify what that issue is, and then how do you now relate that back to your family and let them give you that level of trust so you can go back in? Because another great concern for us, Russ, is when we have to go back in and the family doesn't support us going back in. I mean, that adds to the stress too, correct?
Yeah, it definitely does. You never want to put your loved ones in that position where they have a stress and fear for your safety, when the stress and fear you have for your own safety is often more than you can stand. I remember being down at Disneyland, and it was late at night, and we're walking back to the hotel room, and I get that call, and I knew what the number was. I knew it was from investigations, and picked up, and I said, "Oh, what's up, Jim?" And I already knew he was gonna tell me that there'd been a green light, a hit put out on me. And, I talked to him for a couple minutes. I said, I'll be back on Monday. And my wife, of course, she's like, well, what was that about? And, you have to tell her, well, they're going to try and get me. And, that's stress I didn't want to put on her, but I couldn't keep it from her either. And so these are the things we deal with as corrections professionals. We do what we can to mitigate them. We do what we can to protect our family, but still, have some communication and some honesty there. But it's no joke. This is one of the reasons why this job is not for everybody.
Yeah, that's well said, Russ. Guys, it's never going to be easy going back to work after dealing with something traumatic. We know that, and most of us, again, look for the physical to be cured. And when we get back to work, we realize mentally we're not right. And that's something that you don't want to discover while you're at work. If you have a partner or something, you're putting too many people at risk. This is where there's a level of honesty that's expected from you, so you don't become a risk when you go back to work, which means you have to go deep into yourself and really ask yourself, am I ready to go back in? Do I understand what the concerns are, and how do I feel about now going back into that same environment with all the triggers that could force me right back into what Russ said, that post-traumatic stress. Now, with that said, the agency should also understand that too. Like, you may have a guy or a female that has been assaulted and maybe physically they're doing good, but have you offered them any resources? to make sure mentally they're okay to go back to work? Is there a clearance that they have to go through before they are cleared to go back to work? At least something that the agency would want. And with that said, they should be covered this whole time because, again, physically they got assaulted at work, but also mentally. So the agency should cover whatever they can to make sure that when you have somebody at work, that they're in the right mindset. Because if I'm walking next to someone who's been assaulted, the last thing I want is in the environment to trigger something. And next thing you know, we're all at risk. Myself, obviously the person that I'm working with, and just the agents, just the facility in itself. So we really need to do more on the mental mindset. I don't think we do enough on that. And I do agree with that. I think that we wait for the doctors to clear them. And then once the medical doctors have, we expect that person to come back to work. But no one's actually sitting down with that individual and say, okay, they're medically cleared, but are they mentally cleared? And I mean, literally, you have to get to that person and say, hey, listen, you just been assaulted. Break it down. What happened? Really get an understanding of what this person feels about it. And then once you get a true understanding, there could be determination made that, hey, this person's ready to go back to work, or you know what? There's still some issues that this person may have to deal with. But Russ, do you feel that we actually follow up on the mental side of it all?
I think as one of those that's on the front line, or was on the front line, that we usually do very well amongst our own. As far as perhaps the department does, I never had anyone ever reach out to me in an official capacity, other than a couple of times I had, a warden call me and ask how I was doing. But that's a far cry, really, from, someone pulling you aside in an official capacity and asking you some questions and trying to check on what your mental state actually is. So, I think that there's probably a lot of room for improvement amongst whatever agency is out there. Now, there may be some that are a lot better than what I experienced, but I think that there's definitely room for improvement in a lot of agencies.
Yeah, and if you're higher level management, guys, think about the liability here. If you have someone that's okay physically, but they go back to work and they don't realize that they have like this general fear, because I'm gonna say it could be, if you can't identify what the issue is and you've been majorly assaulted, you may not realize that you have this generalized fear, and all of a sudden you snap on an inmate or whatever it is. There's a liability there, because I am sure if I'm the lawyer for that inmate, I'm going to say, well, wasn't this person just assaulted, this officer? And then we thought it was okay for him to go right back to work, or for her to go right back to work. So what are we doing for the mental health of those that are meant to protect the inmates, protect each other? Because that's the goal. I mean, if I had a officer that was attacked by an inmate, or even a civilian staff, whatever it is, we have to make sure that they don't carry with them some level of generalized animosity that also could be pushed onto anybody wearing that khaki, anybody wearing that green. You know what I mean? We have to make sure that this person's able to, as specific as possible, know what the concern was and how to address that concern specifically. And then once you're able to do that, now you have someone that has a little bit more of a focus when they go back to work, and hopefully that also helps with them in that relationship with their family, because they're able to translate that specific concern. And then the family should be able to say, okay, you know what? It's not, the fact that they can't handle themselves at the job. It's more of, this is what happened, and hopefully that incident doesn't happen again. And guys, even though I mentioned earlier in the episode, about the rarity of it all, sometimes, we know we work in a job that has an inherent risk. And by no means am I telling people to be complacent. But in the end, guys, if I don't want you thinking that, at any moment, because we know at any moment something can happen. We know at any moment, a riot could break out. I get that. And we have to be prepared for that. But you also have to watch out that those feelings don't overwhelm you from stopping you from doing your job. There's a very fine balance of knowing shit can happen in which you are still able to be effective, or knowing shit can happen and I'm totally afraid at every moment. There's a very fine balance. Would you agree with that, Russ, of not being overwhelmed with the possibility of what could happen, knowing it could?
Yeah, on any given day when you're out there and you're scanning, what's going on, and you start to see a potential maybe for a major incident, a riot or whatever, you get put in that position where you're suddenly knowing that you're going to be called on, you're going to have to, function in your official capacity, and you have to be ready. You know that you're going to be going into action, pretty rickety-tick fast. I've seen some individuals that they couldn't handle that, and they ended up having to leave the job because they get paralyzed. They get to a position where even if they're functioning, they're so overcome with emotion that they're not functioning in the best capacity that they can, or one that's at an acceptable level. So there is that. But this particular profession that we're in demands a lot from us, and we have to be ready. We have to stay ready.
Yeah, I love that, because you don't want to be complacent, but you also have to know that you don't want those feelings to overwhelm you to the point you become hesitant. Guys, we've accepted the inherent risk when you enter this job. We get it. And at any moment, something can happen. But I don't want that to stop you from doing what you're supposed to do in this job, which is to literally safety and security, especially as the correctional side of things, or even if you're on the programming side, providing that service. We know we're in a job that at any moment shit can hit the fan. But in the end, you still have to find a way to get that momentum to carry yourself through, but still be alert to the potential of what could happen. It's like the probability versus the likelihood. Hey, Russ, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, I just want to, all you guys out there that are, new to this job, or maybe you're just getting ready to get into the job and you're thinking about it. This is one of those things that you have to deal with as you're getting into the job on the mental level. You have to start, preparing yourself. You have to start playing that what if game. You have to bring your tactics on point. And then when or if it does happen to you, then you have to be able to clear and reset and be ready to, re-enter the game. You got to be ready for that respawn and get ready to come back. And the good thing is we're going to be there to help you. And I mean that in the people that are at your institution. I know it's just filled with good people that are going to, help you do what's right, help you come back, give you the support that you need. Also, on Keepers of Chaos, anytime, man, you can find me, look me up, get a hold of one of my moderators or something. They'll help you out. And I'll always be willing to call anyone and everyone on the phone and talk about this shit, and, do whatever it takes to get you back up and running, or give you some advice so that you can get the help that you need. I'm not a professional. I don't pretend to be, but at the same time, I have a lot of experience in this field, and I have a lot of experience, of having had come back from some of those instances. Is my way the right way every time? Probably not, but we can still talk it and hash it out and bring you a level of support.
Yeah, I agree, Russ. And guys, just in my closing thought, guys, the thing is that we don't always have the ability after an assault to not go back into this profession. I get that. So you want it in a healthy way, while you're, healing physically, you also want to heal yourself mentally, which involves you really going inwards and, seeing if there's any areas of concern in which you are vulnerable, and, making sure you kind of address those before going back to work, because you don't want to be a risk for the agency, for the facility, for the person working next to you. So in the end, guys, all I can say is give yourself a chance to look inwards. Don't just worry about healing on the medical side of things. Worry about healing yourself mentally. And when you're ready to go back to work, the agency should be able to do another evaluation, just to kind of make sure that all areas of concern have been addressed. And during that time, that person should be on paid leave, because again, they were assaulted on the job. So a lot of people look to kind of get at the medical side because maybe that's what's surfaced. Maybe that's what can be seen. But the mental health side is hidden. And sometimes people overlook it because, hey, it's not so obvious until something happens. And then we go back and say, hey, this person's mind wasn't right to go back. After what this person went through, why did we even think about putting this person back? So help, do what you can. Don't make this person a liability, and make sure that we take just as much time, as we do with the physical, we also do with the mental health as well. And that goes for the agency as well as you, the person that could have been assaulted. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.